What's up, everybody? Joe White here. And Dark Side of the Ring, Season 7. Golly, have they already done season 7 seasons? I cannot talk. The Jim Cornette video I did earlier got me all scrabbled. Anyway, go check that out. Um, Dark Side of the Ring, Season 7, Episode 3. It is Jeff Jarrett and the Fight for TNA, Part 3. To me, they left just so much out of this. And I know they only have 45 minutes, an hour with commercials. So, um, there's a lot of stuff here that just did not need to be there. The whole Jeff Hardy um, drug episode from Bound for Glory that one year where he fought Sting, quote unquote, fought Sting, did not need to be in there. There was a lot of things that I did like. I liked the reaction to the whole Dixie Carter um, speech to the troops thing, where she's like, "I need everybody on board with me," yada yada yada, and everybody's pretty much rolling their eyes at her and shit. Um, they go into a lot of Jarrett's alcoholism, and my main problem with this series is that it's not telling us anything we don't already know. And you could argue the fact that, well, Joe, it's not made for smart marks like me. But that's all who's watching it. Let's be real here. So this didn't tell me anything that I didn't already know. I mean, I saw the video of him throwing tortillas out to the crowd. Now, what I did not see, or what nobody had seen up to this point, I guess, was the whole drunken episode backstage where he's fumbling around everybody and fighting everybody and acting all stupid. But they could have, they did a lot of stuff about the six-sided ring, and I want to address that because they act like this six-sided ring was a big part of TNA, and it was, but they acted like everybody wanted it to be there, and like it was such a shocker when it was gone. That whole Genesis pay-per-view where they everybody shows up in the Impact Zone and it's a fucking four-sided ring there instead of the six-sided ring. The crowd starts chanting, "We want six sides. We want six sides" at Hogan and Bischoff, which I don't think they expected. But let me do this. Let me air a clip. This is from a table for 3 episode that WWE did, and I know it's going to get copywritten, but I don't make any money off this anyway. This is table for 3. It's Jeff Jarrett, Sting, and AJ Styles talking about the six-sided ring. Take a look at this.
And I'd worked for the Roldan family, going to AAA and Pena and all that, and they had that six-sided ring. And I remember, before this Main Event Mafia area, hey, I want to do the six-sided ring. And internally, that was a nightmare battle.
I hated it.
Did you really?
Oh, yeah.
Tell me why.
Too many years wrestling in the squared circle.
And I told Hulk that. I said, "Why do you hate it?" He said, "Oh, brother, it's not right." I said, "Well, what's not right about it? Is it harder to hit the rope?"
It just changed the dynamic of everything. And, I suppose it's good for some and not so good for others.
It's the only thing that got us shelf space in the toy market. They didn't care about action figures. They didn't care about talent. Oh, you've got a six-sided ring? That'll sell. We want it.
I grew to love it.
Yeah.
I thought it made us so different from anything anybody else was seeing. And it was kind of like, with cage fighting, it would look like that. It was kind of made it more sport oriented, being so different than did a box ring. We had six sides. It looked like MMA kind of, It was different. I loved that look to the point where when I heard we were going to lose it, I was mad.
You and a few others were vocal.
I just liked us being different.
I wasn't complaining when it was gone.
So it was a very divided locker room when it came to that ring. Don't let it fool you. Not everybody liked that damn thing. A lot of wrestlers said that, and it's not just the old guys coming from WWE or even Sting coming from WCW. A lot of the indie wrestlers hated that damn thing because it was difficult to, like, when you shoot people off the ropes and you run, like, the angles were really, really hard it's really hard to get your moves down. Also, that ring was not a very friendly ring from what I understand. It was a harder canvas because the canvas is being pulled in two extra directions. Um, Also, there was extra supports underneath that thing, so it hurt when you landed on it in certain spots. There were certain places that you couldn't bump in it. So not everybody liked the six-sided ring. The novelty of it wore off very, very quickly for me as a fan. Um, what they could have gotten into was that right there, that promo where Hulk Hogan's like, "No more playpen rings, brother," at the beginning of that Genesis pay-per-view, was how they kicked the show off with a really good cruiserweight bout, and then they cut to um, Sean Morley doing the Val Venus gimmick. He's in full Val Venus mode, going up against Christopher Daniels, who was a heel, or trying to be a heel. But what they don't get into is the fact that, and I have the clip, and I won't play it because it wasn't like it was a huge group of fans, but there was a cluster of fans in the first like two or three rows that as soon as Christopher Daniels lost, they actually turned their backs on the product. They got up, turned around, and sat there with their middle fingers up in the air, like "fuck you. We do not like this product. We don't like these old WWE guys coming in." I mean, I can remember they had Orlando Jordan doing a fucking full on like Chippendales routine. Because, Orlando Jordan was bisexual, and oh God, heaven forbid. Um, Overall, I mean, I guess you could say these three episodes were very good. They told a great story. There was a lot of shit they left out of part three. I feel like you could have done more on TNA and less on Jeff Jarrett, even though this is supposed to be Jeff Jarrett's story, so to speak. But make it about Jeff Jarrett, not about TNA. You could have done a whole 3 episode arc just on the business of TNA and how it's gotten to where it is. Because they do bring up Anthem, and they do bring up like the Toby Keith thing of Toby Keith wanting to buy it. What they don't go into is, the fact that Dixie just let this thing go so far downhill that finally Dallas just sold it off and washed their hands of it. They don't go into the fact that Billy Corgan was trying to buy it and actually helped finance a few episodes there at the end. They don't go into the fact that American Express was suing them at the end for unpaid credit card bills due to travel. They don't go into the fact that they lost their offices in Nashville at Cummings Station because they couldn't pay the rent on it anymore. They don't go into the fact that Ron and Don Harris were owed money because of a production company snafu. Ron and Don Harris's production company was owed money by TNA. They don't go into the fact that the state of Tennessee imposed a tax lien on the company because they did not pay state taxes. There's so much more they could have went into here. Okay, yeah, Jeff Jarrett has this great redemption arc or whatever the case may be, but TNA has, I mean, there's rumors that the company's up for sale again. And if they ever announce that it is up for sale, WWE has the first rights to buy the damn thing. They get the first bid in. So there's so much more that they could have went into. But no, we got to devote an entire half an episode to the Kurt Angle thing. The Kurt Angle Jeff Jarrett storyline. We got to we got to sit there and do an entire like quarter of an episode on the Jeff Hardy pilled out of his mind, bound for glory thing, and how that inspired him to get clean. That could have been totally. I mean, good for Jeff Hardy. I'm glad he's clean and sober these days, but that could have totally been cut out. You know, we don't go into, just snafu after snafu with these guys. We don't go into the night that they caught the building on fire. Remember when they were very first starting to do the weekly pay-per-views and the building caught on fire? We don't go into that at all. There's so many moments from this company's history. And they want to go into like production value, how we were spending more money on our we were WWE was spending more money on their pyro than we were on our production. At that point that he's talking about when Bischoff and Hogan and all them came in, it didn't matter how much money you spent on production. Polish a turd, it's still a turd. That was the moment that TNA died, was that Genesis pay-per-view, I believe in 2009, 2010, when, Hogan and Bischoff come in and no more playpen rings and all this. And even like Jarrett said, that's the only reason why we got in toy stores. They wanted the six-sided ring. I can remember going into my local Toys R Us with my son and seeing that there when he was little. But um I did, find it funny how Awesome Kong on one episode goes from she's a female and I wanted to see the females lead to, I mean, even though 2 segments before she's talking about how she barely made more money than a manager at McDonald's, but now she's all like, "Fuck you, let them eat cake." But I like Kia Stevens. I like Awesome Kong. She's awesome. If you've seen any of her shoot interviews, she's crazy as hell, and I like it. Let's see, what else did they go into besides Jeff Jarrett going into rehab? That's pretty much it. That's pretty much it. Um, there's so much more that they don't talk about. You know, losing the Spike TV deal. They don't talk about having to go on to Destination America, which lasted, I think, a year. They don't go into the fact that they then were on Pop TV. Pop TV, the former TV Guide channel. And then they don't talk about, eventually getting on AMC, because this is supposed to be the history of TNA and his fight for TNA. It's kind of like TNA ended when Jeff Jarrett ended. And they do talk about how the company's still around and that they're glad the company's still around on AMC, which is a big deal for them. Don't get me wrong, AMC is a big deal for them. But I just think they could have went a little bit more in on TNA. Maybe do like a follow-up episode next season on the status of TNA. I don't know. Maybe do like a web episode. Put it up on the YouTube channel. Who knows? So I'm wondering what the next one is. Let me see here. Give me 1 second. So the next one is about the big match between the Necro Butcher versus Samoa Joe. Um, I'm curious to see if they got an interview out of Necro Butcher, and if they go into Necro Butcher's, you know, life and career. That man ate a bug once at a fucking house show, or at a Ring of Honor show. Never will forget. Was the night before I was getting ready to get married in 2009. They wrestled in Manassas, Virginia, and instead of having a bachelor party, I said, "Screw it, we're going to wrestling." And the match is on YouTube. Samoa Joe, or not Samoa Joe, sorry guys, Necro Butcher's in the ring, He's on the apron, and a moth is in the arena. It's an indoor soccer facility that they piped and draped into this arena, and there's a moth buzzing around because they had the big floodlights that they would put up in each corner to light the building because they didn't have money for a lighting rig, nor would the building support one. So the moth is flying around, and Necro Butcher all of a sudden sees it, and he claps his hands and kills the moth. It lands, boom, right at his feet on the apron. Or in the ring. It's actually in the ring. And the referee kicks it out of the apron and kicks it right to Necro Butcher's feet. And the crowd starts chanting, "Eat the bug! Eat the bug!" So Necro does the whole thing where he picks it up. It's a dead bug. He picks it up by the wing, does the whole deal where he opens his mouth and looks up and opens his mouth, the classic cartoon shot, and drops the bug right into his damn mouth and eats the son of a bitch. Oh, I get the willies just thinking about it. Oh man. Anyway, that's my review of Dark Side of the Ring season 7, episode 3. It's a good episode. These 3 episodes, if you watch them all in a row, they're very good. I just wish they would have spent a little bit more time on TNA. Also, you have a plethora of footage that you could have used because it's all oh shit, fair use. There we go. Golly, I had a brain fart. It's all fair use. You could have used clips from Bruce Pritchard's podcast where he goes into, I mean, he calls Dixie Carter's mother Beelzebub for crying out loud in one of the episodes. They did a 4-hour long episode on TNA alone. They could have used clips from that podcast, and they didn't. I highly advise anybody who has never heard it, go to the Something to Wrestle With YouTube channel, or just type in your YouTube Something to Wrestle TNA. He did 2 parts. Part 1 is the better one. Enjoy. It's 4 hours long, and he goes into a ton of shit on there. From Ric Flair being employed by TNA and doing the WWE Hall of Fame, all the way to the guys not getting paid. That's another thing they didn't get into. There were guys who were not getting paid. They couldn't park their car at the airport to come to work because they ain't getting paid. And I'll leave you to go listen to Bruce Pritchard's podcast about how that all got sorted out. It'll baffle you. But that's my review. We'll see you down the road.
The more they put in, whenever he requested them, the better would the music be for bantering on the floor. Oh, the toot on the flute and the twiddle on the fiddle, oh, hopping in the middle like a heron on the griddle, oh, hop down, hands around, crossing to the wall, oh, handle away the gaiety and fill the flute holes. Oh, good on you, son.